and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1545. This is a special report for Saturday. The title of the report is What You See and Hear is Not What is Happening. Troop Withdrawal on Track. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, on Friday the 13th, Trump decided to fire missiles into Syria. And there's a lot of people out there screaming about World War III starting, that we are attacking Russia, Syria, their troops. And this is not what is happening. And if you really break this down, we discussed this before, that he might strike certain targets. And you need to go back to the Q post, you need to go back to the intel that we've been reviewing and put all the pieces together in what we are seeing. Now, let's think about this for a second. When Obama was president and he said he was going in and basically bombing the Islamic State, we all knew that was completely fake, phony, and false. It was the opposite that was happening. Well, now the same thing is happening. What Trump is telling the corporate media, that we're hitting Assad, we're stopping him from using chemical weapons, actually the opposite is happening right now. What's happening is that we're stopping the deep state. We're stopping the deep state paid mercenary armies. We are basically cornering them. And I'm going to go through this and show you how all of this is coming true and how the next phase is Iran and the troops will be coming home. This is what this is all about. This is what he's been planning for quite a while. Now, with this strike, what did Trump accomplish here? What did the patriots accomplish in doing this? Well, it showed the corporate media, with all this Russian collusion, he's not working for Putin, because he made it a very big point to say, Putin, how dare you work for them? We're firing missiles. They're smarter. They're better. And basically, he played this up to make it seem like he's completely against Putin and not working for him. So he wanted to lay the groundwork for that to make sure the corporate media picked that up. And this is the initial phase of bringing the troops home and hitting the deep state where it hurts. Now, in the background of all this, and I know this is going to be very difficult to understand, just like North Korea, when he was out there saying that our nuclear button was bigger than Kim Jong-un's, that we'll fire the nukes, we have military plans to go in there, this is how many casualties there'll be, World War III, and everything else. Now, what happened in the background, which was not being broadcasted by the corporate media, no one was really talking about, were the peace talks, were the negotiations. Now, of course, that didn't get any play. Now that there's peace, pretty much the corporate media is laying off of that completely. The same thing is happening here, but this is a little bit tougher, because with North Korea, we didn't have forces inside. We weren't at war, and we weren't pushing certain agendas. Yes, the deep state, the cabal, was inside of North Korea, but we didn't have our troops and everything else in there. In Syria, it's a little bit different, so he has to go about this in a different way. Now, Russia was warned ahead of time that this was going to happen. Now, of course, Russia, for a very long time, has been warning of a false flag attack, a stage attack by the White Helmets. They even pointed the finger at the UK. And they had intel and pics showing them moving chlorine canisters and everything else. So we knew this was going to happen. And we knew that they needed to basically get them to perform this staged event. Why did he need them to do this? Well, there are a couple of reasons why he needed to do this. And how did he force them to do this? Well, in Ohio, when he was giving his speech, he basically mentioned that we're going to be pulling the troops out of Syria. And basically what happened, the deep state got very, very nervous, and they did a couple of things. One, they staged the event. And basically they were prepared and ready with satellite, with other intel, to gather as much information as possible. The other thing was they warned certain paid mercenary troops to get ready, because when the bombing starts, you're going to push forward. And they were thinking this was going to be like with Obama, with when he bombed Syria, what did he do? He laid the groundwork and basically opened the area for the troops to, guess what? Get more territory. Well, this is not what's happening here. And what we're seeing is something completely different. Now, the White House, Trump, they're saying that they got all their information, and now think about this for a second, from social media, open sources, outlets, videos, and the white helmets. And they're playing this up. This is where all of their information came from, and this is why we went ahead and we bombed Syria. And they're just doing the same thing that the deep state has been doing for a very long time. So the deep state does believe that, yes, he's doing what we want him to do, which basically he is not. Now, the Syrian Air Force, the Air Defense Forces, they've lost no assets in the strike. Remember, Trump in the beginning gave many, many days ahead of time for Syria, Russia, to move military assets, to move personnel. This was done on purpose. And basically, behind the scenes and back channels, it was basically told to Russia this was going to happen. Russia then turned around and told the Syrian government, and they were all protecting all of their assets because they knew that this was coming. And many people say, you know something, why are we doing all of this? Why don't we just come out and say, hey, listen, over the many, many years, what has happened here is that the United States, they paid for the Islamic State, they created the Islamic State, they created Al-Qaeda, we actually bombed ourselves with 9/11, we actually control these paid mercenary armies to go into different countries to have regime change, and basically we are the cause of all the wars. Now, yeah, we could do all of that, but most of the American people will have nervous breakdowns. It seems completely far-fetched, unbelievable. Remember when you were waking up, this stuff that you're hearing didn't make any sense because when you are sleeping, you don't want to believe. So it's very, very difficult to just put this out there and just dump all of this on everyone because most of the people would shut down. They won't even listen to any of this. So Russia and everyone is playing their part. Now, if you notice, very slowly, Russia, China, they're continually dropping a lot of breadcrumbs that this is a staged event. Nothing really happened. And they're coming out with more and more of this information to let people know that this stuff is really fake. Now, Russia is out there and they're saying that the U.S.-led strike in Syria was without the UNSC mandate, the United Nations Security Council mandate, and it's a violation of international law. Now, Putin, Russia, they already know that they're going to bring this up in front of the UN, and it's going to be shot down. And that's exactly what happened. The UN Security Council rejected the Russian draft resolution, slamming the strike on Syria. Now, the UN Security Council pretty much always does this to Russia. Who controls the UN? The deep state. So they automatically say, yeah, whatever Russia's saying, no, we reject it. And what we're seeing is that these strikes, they really didn't do anything. Actually, a lot of the militants, the paid mercenary armies, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, all the different factions that really are one and the same, they're out there and they're saying that the U.S.-led strikes are a farce, that nothing even happened. They were supposed to hit Duma, they were supposed to hit all these different targets, and it didn't happen. Of course it didn't. Because this was not the plan. Yes, this was the deep state's plan, but this was not Trump and the patriots' plan. Their plan is something completely different. Now, the people in Syria, they're out there in the capital of Damascus. They're dancing around saying, wow, we thought this was going to be a lot worse. This was nothing. Because remember, they've been in war for a very long time and they're dancing on the streets. And they thought this was going to be this one gigantic assault and Damascus was going to be leveled. This is not what happened. Now, Syria is claiming that they intercept many of the missiles that were heading towards different locations. The Pentagon is saying, no, none of the missiles were intercepted. And we can see right now that Russia is also saying that none of the missiles even entered the Russian anti-air defense zones. They didn't have any problems there whatsoever, because these weren't the targets. The targets were something completely different, and we're going to be getting into that in just a little bit. Now, there were two sets of targets that they were aiming for. One, to make it look like they were going after these chemical weapons, and when I say chemical weapons, I'm not saying who they belong to. And the other was to stop the deep state, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But the OPCW investigators, they have arrived in Damascus, and Russia and Syria have guaranteed their safety, and they will be protecting them. Now, the Pentagon finally acknowledged U.S. contractors in Syria. They're saying there's about 5,500 contractors, plus the 2,000 troops in Syria right now, which they'd never acknowledged before. And we need to understand that right now, Russia, Syria, they're not attacking, they're not doing anything at this point. Everything is basically status quo. And we knew if there was going to be a strike, it was going to be on the deep state. And we just didn't know the time frame, but if we actually looked at the Q posts, we can see the future does prove the past, and we can actually see when the timeline was if you read the information correctly. And right now, we still have the strike group headed towards Syria, and this is for the next phase of withdrawing the troops. And I'm not saying once the strike group gets there, the troops are going to be removed, but the next phase is to withdraw the troops and to remove the deep state and the cabal from Iran. Now, we kind of knew that there might be some type of strike. We mentioned it in our reports. And this was not a strike to let the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, the moderate rebels, all these remove Assad, to move forward into Damascus. This was to basically shut down the deep state, to surround them. So let's go back to some of the Q posts, and let's see what Q was saying in the past. Post 1106. Syria, hold until confirmation. Military assets on the ground locked out of ground zero. Israel strike, harmed ability to prove events. Clown report must be verified. Troop unwind to still occur. Have faith, trust, POTUS. Now, the topic for this is Syria. He's giving orders to wait until something can be confirmed. What needs to be confirmed exactly? Some kind of intel. They couldn't get troops into the area they needed to at first, so they had to wait until they could get into position where they could observe and verify this piece of intel. And once they had the intel in their possession, they would understand what really happened here. Their next move depended upon, of course, verification. So let's fast forward to Friday the 13th. And this is when they decided to launch the attack. Now, we know that Russia and Syria, they evacuated the entire area, buildings and things like that. We sent missiles to empty buildings, and we destroyed empty buildings. Now, of course, on the corporate media, you're hearing that this was, a chemical weapons laboratory research center. This is where it was all happening, and basically there was really nothing in there. They were completely empty, abandoned. And Trump, when he first made the announcement of attacking and having Russia informed of what was going to happen, they had many, many days in advance to basically remove everything and move out of the area. And I'm not saying remove their chemical weapons, but remove their military assets, move their military personnel, and things like that. So basically, what Q is saying is that they were able to trap the clowns, which is the CIA intelligence agencies. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to trap them in Syria, trap them in their lies, trap them in what they're doing. So the picture is getting clearer right now. So maybe this will help. We know that the troops are going to be withdrawn from Syria. We know there's going to be other ops. We know that the mission is to go after the deep state, and then the next phase is to go into Iran, because we know the deep state, the cabal, they have a faction inside of Iran, just like North Korea did. So what they're doing right now is they're destroying the cabal's capabilities in Syria before ops begin. The cabal has shown us time and time again that the only option they have is to instigate a wider war to append the plan. These strikes were surgical and were aimed at destroying tech, and RSCS cabal has moved into the country. No name, MI6, CIA, no name, by the way, is McCain. They are on the move. McCain is scared. He works with the Islamic State. He's been seen with the Islamic State. And we can see right now, this is all in preparation for the next move. Now, Q actually came online during the bombing of Syria. And I wouldn't say the country of Syria. I would say he bombed the deep state targets. Now, the message was, trust POTUS, Sparrow Red, missiles only, intel good. Now, first, what is Sparrow Red? That was in the comm from the other night. Night 4, increase in chatter, authorization B19-2, Sparrow Red, prevent at all costs good, Castle Online. So, reviewing this line again, what does Sparrow Red actually mean? Well, we know Q has a thing for movie references. He said something about The Matrix and other movies. And we know that Red Sparrow is a movie that came out recently, specifically a movie about Russian spy tasked with seducing a CIA agent to gain access to state secrets. And we know the book version was actually written by an ex-CIA officer. But why is it backwards? Well, Sparrow Red is now Red Sparrow, which he flipped. And the reason he flipped it is because of this. Because they got themselves a Russian spy who flipped and works for the U.S. now. So now, go back and review Q's earlier post about Syria. Syria, hold until confirmation. Military assets on the ground locked out of ground zero. Israel strike harmed ability to prove events. Clown report must be verified. Troop unwind to still occur. Have faith, trust POTUS. Is it possible that a Russian spy flipped and gave us intel about the cabal activities and location throughout Syria? Intel that Trump and team needed to verify before taking action on it? Intel that required a few days in order to investigate? Remember how many days passed between the initial attack and Trump's reaction. This was a calculated move. With this move, think about what he just did. Trump has now outmaneuvered Israel, the deep state, simultaneously maintaining the appearance of working with them. They think this was a success. Now remember, Iran is next, and we know Iran has the same problem. Faction of the cabal, the deep state, inside of Iran, trying to push a war. Now, what about No Name, which is John McCain? He came out and he issued a statement praising Trump's decision to strike Syria as punishment for the chemical weapons attack. But McCain also called on Trump to set a comprehensive strategy in both Syria and the Middle East. So basically, he's out there saying, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. Because remember, going back a couple of days, I think it was April 8th, there were pictures with McCain with certain actors. And these actors, number one is Abu Mossa, ISIS press officer. Number two, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, head of ISIS. Number three is McCain. Number four is Mohammed Noor, Syrian terrorist. Number five is Muaz Mustafa, and he's the Syrian Emergency Task Force who has access to Washington, and all weapon deliveries and everything go through him. So we need to go to the post where this came from. And basically the post says, what forces shadowed No Name? What forces were all around No Name? John McCain. That was the Islamic State. Contractors. Special contractors. Exact location. Exact buildings. E of spiderweb. So they knew from their intel where the weapons were, where the terrorist chlorine gas was, where their production facilities were. They knew all of this information. They were gathering intel. Q was telling us about this. And what else did Trump do by mentioning the troop withdrawal and having the deep state pull off this stage false flag? He's also managed to divide the EU on this, hurting the deep state. Think about it. Greece, Italy, Germany, Cyprus. They all didn't want to join in. I mean, there are other countries, but they didn't want to join in. So the EU right now is divided on this. So let's go back to the intel drop that Q made on April 13th while the bombs were raining down on Syria. Missiles only, no troops. Troops are leaving. And let's look at the timeline here. On post 1124, April 10th, Q said the following. At Snowden, yes, testify then drop. We have it all. These people are stupid. Fireworks. POTUS weekly addressed. End. Testify then drop, which was Tuesday. We have it all, which is Wednesday. These people are stupid, which is Thursday. Fireworks. That was the bombing on Friday. POTUS weekly addressed. Saturday. Expand your thinking. He just made another drop today, April 14th. The date versus actual. Iran is next. Trust the plan. April showers. What do you think April showers means? That means we're hitting the deep state with bombs. The showers of bombs are raining down on the deep state. Now, there is something very interesting in the drop. And if we go back to April 8th, post 1077, authorization B-19-2. And there were two USAF B-1 Lance bombers launched 19 missiles. Is this a coincidence? Or did they know exactly what they were doing, where they were going to launch two B-1 Lance bombers? They were going to launch 19 missiles. And this is exactly what Q said on April 8th. So it's either a coincidence or this was exactly planned, because to make something up like this, authorization B-19-2, B-1 Lance bombers, 19 missiles, and 2 of them. I mean, is that a coincidence? I don't think so. So what we're seeing right now is basically what we saw with North Korea. The corporate media is out there, and they have their war correspondents. They have everyone on there telling you what they want to happen. Just like with North Korea. We're going in there. This is how many casualties. They can fire the missiles, hit Chicago, Alaska, California. They can, basically shut down the infrastructure. They can do all these things, and North Korea is going to do this because Kim Jong-un is a madman. And Trump played this perfectly with North Korea. Kept on going till the very, very end. And then all of a sudden, there was peace. The same thing's happening right now. He's playing to the corporate media and bringing them along because this is all they know. They think the deep state is in control. The deep state is not in control. And once the strike group gets there, we're going to see other things happen. Now, there might be more strikes, but this will be against the deep state, and we will see an announcement of troops coming out of Syria. Remember, Putin at the highest level, he knows all of this. And the next phase is Iran. And if you remember back, they said November 11th, which is Veterans Day, which there's going to be a parade, and it's going to be a parade that we're never going to forget. And I do believe this is where all the troops are going to come home, and this is why we're going to have this parade. So this is supposed to be completed by that time. And as we can see, that everything that the corporate media is out there talking about, everything that they're saying about World War III and everything else, it's not happening. This whole thing was completely planned. It was planned to get the deep state It was to corner them. It was to get the troops out of Syria, out of this illegal war. And to do this, it has to be done a little differently than North Korea, because we do have troops in there. There are paid mercenaries. The deep state is in there. And they are pushing their agenda from Iran, from other countries. And we need to get into Syria, remove the troops there. Next phase, go into Iran, and basically rout out the deep state in Iran, just like North Korea. And once that is done, well, there'll be no U.S. troops in this entire area. And the deep state, well, it's pretty much game over. So what we're seeing right now is this whole entire plan is happening. Everything is a go. And what you think might be happening is actually the opposite. Because the corporate media is very good at trying to convince everyone that this is what is happening. They've done this in the past because in the past, they had the intel from the deep state and they were pushing everyone in that direction. They're still doing it, but they don't realize what is happening in the background. They don't realize that when Trump said he's bringing the troops home, this is actually what is happening. And this is the beginning phase of this operation. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.